What's up YouTube, Zero here, and today I have an amazing Flygon EX and Decidueye EX deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build that you can see on the left hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of these cards individually. I'll talk about why these Pokemon and these trainer cards gel so well with each other, and I'll talk about why you should check this deck out, and I'll also talk about some of the limitations at the end of the video. If you do enjoy deck builds in Pokemon TCG Pocket, if you enjoy Pokemon TCG Pocket videos in general, definitely hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more content along these lines. I do a lot of different deck builds, some meta, some unique, and I'm gonna be coming out with videos surrounding Pokemon TCG Pocket in general. So make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss a video. Without further ado, let's talk about Flygon EX and Decidueye EX. Flygon EX was just dropped in the Pulsing Aura packs that released not too long ago. It is a dragon type Pokemon, which means it has no weaknesses. But of course, like the majority of dragon-type Pokemon, it is a little difficult to get online. Now, it has two different energies that don't really have a good way to ramp the energies. For three different energies, one of which is grass, one of which is fighting, and then another colorless, Flygon EX can hit for 140. But after you hit for 140, after you've done all that, after you've gotten it a grass energy, you've gotten it a fighting energy, and then a third energy, you have to discard the top card of your deck. So it is a lot to invest into Flygon EX. However, 140 is a decent amount of damage, and Flygon EX also has an ability, Sand Slammer. This ability is really cool. During Pokemon Checkup, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, do 10 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So if Flygon EX is in the active spot, at the end of each turn, that's your turn and your opponent's turn, you can hit each of your opponent's Pokemon for 10 damage. So that means by the end of your turn and then the end of your opponent's turn, as long as Flygon EX is in that active spot, you've just hit all of your opponent's Pokemon that have been on the playing field for both turns for 20. That's awesome that you can spread that much damage around your opponent. And again, on top of that, if you're fully powered up with a grass, a fighting, and a colorless, you can hit for 140 on top of that. So 160 damage, that's a lot of damage to deal. It's going to be able to KO a lot of EX Pokemon in the game and Pokemon in general. The majority of Mega Pokemon, I'm pretty sure every Mega Pokemon, is going to be able to take one hit and then a couple of checkups. But Flygon EX does have 180 HP, so it does have a significant amount of HP. The hard part is getting Flygon EX online with the grass, the fighting, and the colorless energy, but Sand Slammer is really cool. And of course, this combines very well with Decidueye, and that's why I like combining Flygon EX with Decidueye. Now, Decidueye is a grass-type Pokemon, but not all of its moves require grass energy. So while Flygon, you do require the two different energies, the grass and the fighting, and again, there's no good way to ramp that energy. If you think of water-type decks, you have Baxcalibur that can take energy from the energy zone and attach it to your active Pokemon. You have Mantike, a baby Pokemon that can ramp energy. Fire energy, we have Magby that can ramp fire energy. Electric energy, we can ramp with Pichu. Grass doesn't have that. Fighting doesn't have that. So you kind of have to wait and you have to get a little lucky, but even if you're not getting lucky, if Flygon's in that active spot, it is hitting your opponents for that 10 damage each checkup. The reason why it combines so well with Decidueye is Decidueye's move, Pierce the Pain. Now, Pierce the Pain requires two energy, both of which are colorless. So it doesn't matter if you have two grass energy, doesn't matter if you have two fighting energy, doesn't matter if you have a grass and a fighting energy on Decidueye. Pierce the Pain you can attack one of your opponent's Pokemon that has damage on it for 100 damage. So as long as your opponent has been taking damage, i.e. Flygon in that active spot, regardless of if Flygon is powered up or not, as long as Decidueye has 2 energy on it, you can pierce the pain and attack any Pokemon that has damage on it. So that's really cool, and it pairs really well with Flygon, because even if you're bricking on energy, let's say you're only getting fighting type energy, so you're not able to attack with Flygon, you're not able to attack with Razor Leaf. Decidueye does have a second move. Razor Leaf, for 2 grass energy, you can hit for 80. But you're bricking on grass energy. You're only getting fighting type energy, which of course is possible. You're only getting fighting type energy as long as you had Flygon in that active spot and you're hitting with Sand Slammer. You're going to be able to attack any Pokemon with Pierce the Pain. So that's really awesome, and a phenomenal combination for Decidueye is that even if you are bricking on that energy, you're still going to be able to attack your opponents because your opponents have been taking damage. But I did mention Decidueye does have another move. As long as you're able to get 2 grass energy onto Decidueye, you can hit with Razor Leaf for 80. So there is that option as well, but Pierce the Pain is going to be the best option in this deck. You get Flygon EX into that active spot, you're hitting with Sand Slammer. Hopefully, you're able to get the energy required for Dragon Pulse for 140. But if you can't, at least you're dealing damage, you're spreading damage around, and then Decidueye can pick off whatever Pokemon Decidueye needs to. Perhaps you're able to finish off a Mega Pokemon with that 100 damage because Sand Slammer has just been pounding and pounding away. Or perhaps you already got a point or 2 if you're lucky enough. Maybe Sand Slammer took out a baby Pokemon or 2. You're able to just pick off a weakened basic Pokemon with Pierce the Pain. So there are a lot of options. So this combination does work very well. And you've seen that I have been able to defeat some pretty good decks. The first video I was able to defeat a Mega Lucario deck. This video I'm able to defeat a Crobat EX deck. So 2 pretty good decks. Mega Lucario, very prominent, used a lot in the meta. Crobat EX is no slouch. It's a very good deck. Now, it doesn't see as much play, but it's still a very good poison deck. I'm able to defeat it as well. So this deck does have a decent amount going for it, and this combination in Decidueye and Flygon is a really good combination. So on top of these 2 cards, I want to shift to the Pokemon tool I have in this deck, and it's Rocky Helmet. So Rocky Helmet, for those of you who don't know, of course, Rocky Helmet can be attached to a Pokemon, and if you're attacked by an attack, as long as you're in the active spot, you do 20 damage to the attacking Pokemon. Now, this is important because of Pierce the Pain. If Flygon EX has not gotten to that active spot, if we have not gotten a Pokemon in that active spot that can deal damage, perhaps we drew a Rowlet to start. Rowlet's in that active spot, and we started with a fighting energy. Then we rare candied into our Decidueye, and regardless of the next energy, whether it's grass or fighting, we still don't have those 2 grass energies that we need to attack with Razor Leaf. Rocky Helm will deal some damage to the attacking Pokemon, so we're going to take a little bit of damage, but our opponent is going to take the damage from Rocky Helm. Then we're going to be able to attack with Pierce the Pain. So Rocky Helm is really going to help us if we're bricking on energy that we need. It's going to help us deal some damage, and then we can start attacking with Pierce the Pain. On top of that, if it's on Flygon and we're bricking on energy, at least we're dealing 40 damage by the end of each of our turns. So Rocky Helm hits our opponent for 20. Sand Slammer hits our opponent for another 10. Every Pokemon for another 10. And then at the end of our turn, it hits for another 10. So it's going to be 40 when it's all said and done between our opponent's turn and our turn. So that's a decent amount of damage just whittling down your opponent, waiting for the energy required to attack with either Flygon or Decidueye. So Rocky Helm is really needed for this combination. Both are really important. Now, because these are two Stage 2 Pokemon, they are a little harder to get online, but I have 2 rare candies. I also have 1 Dartrix, and I also have 1 Vibrava. Vibrava is actually kind of nice, to be honest. Sometimes I like to just wait for Vibrava, because Vibrava can attack for 1 colorless energy. It has Sandwind, and Sandwind is able to damage each of your opponent's Pokemon for 10 damage. So I actually really like Vibrava. Even though I'm trying to get to Flygon and Flygon's going to be hitting with Sand Slammer, I'm not as upset if I'm able to put Vibrava in that active spot and at least attack with Sandwind for 1 colorless energy. So if you are bricking on energy as well, and you're bricking on those rare candies, you can't evolve into your Flygon into that active spot, you can put Vibrava in that active spot and just start attacking all of your opponent's Pokemon for 10 damage. So Vibrava is a nice addition to this deck as well, of course allowing us to either get to our Flygon a little bit of a bridge, or allowing Decidueye to hit with Pierce the Pain after Vibrava is taken out. Then, of course, the basics of each of these evolution lines, Rowlet and Trapinch. Trapinch can attack for 1 colorless energy, so that's nice. The line of Decidueye, both Rowlet and Dartrix, do require 1 grass energy, but what's nice about both of these Pokemon is you can damage any Pokemon on the playing field that you choose. So Rowlet, the attack does 10 damage to 1 of your opponent's Pokemon. Dartrix, the attack does 20 damage to 1 of your opponent's Pokemon. So if there's a baby Pokemon in the active spot and you're not worried about the baby Pokemon, maybe it's one of those babies that I mentioned earlier. It's a Magby. And you know that the Magby isn't going to be able to do any damage to you. Perhaps you want to try and take out that Charmander on the bench, because you know it's going to evolve into a Charizard. You know it's going to give you problems in the future. So you deal the damage to the Charmander, maybe you're able on the next turn to evolve into your Decidueye, and then you're able to Pierce the Pain and defeat that Charmander on the bench prior to your opponent evolving. So I like the Pokemon in the Decidueye evolution line that can attack any Pokemon, because you can really strategize on what Pokemon to attack, what Pokemon you really want to take out before it gives you issues. That's why Decidueye is such a great Pokemon. Really good grass Pokemon, not just for Flygon, but in a lot of different grass decks because of its versatility and its ability to take out issues before they become a bigger or tougher challenge. Now, a couple of basic cards in this deck. There are the Pokeballs. There's also the Professor's Research, trying to draw cards from the deck quicker. The Pokeball is going to get the basic Pokemon. Professor's Research just going to draw 2 cards. May is here because I need to get the Pokemon on the playing field. There's no ifs, ands, buts, or ors about it. I need Decidueye on the playing field. I need Flygon on the playing field. Flygon going to go into that active spot, start hitting with Sand Slammer. If we're lucky, we are hitting with Dragon Pulse. If not, we're at least hitting with Sand Slammer. Decidueye going to come in with Pierce the Pain and finish our opponents off. Now, depending upon how the energy plays out, maybe we're hitting with Decidueye because we got 2 grass energy, or if we were lucky enough to get a grass and a fighting onto our Flygon, we're hitting with that 140. And as long as we're attacking, we're happy. We want to be attacking with Razor Leaf, we want to be attacking with Dragon Pulse, or we want to be attacking with Pierce the Pain, but we want to be attacking with something. So once we get our Flygon and Decidueye onto the playing field, we're really not too concerned about discarding cards that much. That's why I don't have many cards in this deck that are going to provide any form of, oh, I need a Cyrus. Well, Flygon may discard the Cyrus, so there's no point in having it. This deck is just a matter of let's get our 2-stage 2 Pokemon out onto the playing field and attacking as quickly as possible. And so the rest of the cards like May, like Copycat, are going to get us there. Towards the end of the battle, we may not need a Copycat, we may not need a May, because Flygon's going to be attacking, Decidueye is going to be ready to wait in the wings after our Flygon has done as much damage as possible. And of course, Copycat is going to be there as well, so it can grab as many cards from the deck as possible if we're bricking or if we don't have a lot of cards in our hand and our opponent has been able to draw a lot of cards. Copycat is going to be there to help us grab a bunch of cards from our deck and start getting those cards out onto the playing field. But this is a really fun deck. These cards really gel well with each other. Now, it is a little bit harder. I've mentioned it earlier. Getting 2 Stage 2 Pokemon onto the playing field does take a little bit. It is a little bit harder to achieve, but that's why we have the cards in our deck to help us get there. We have a May, we have a Copycat, we have 2 Professor's Research, we have 2 Pokeballs. We're trying to draw as many cards from our deck as possible. We're just trying to get the cards we need onto the playing field. Like I said, I was able to defeat a Mega Lucario. This deck that I'm playing against is a Mega Manectric that I was just able to defeat. So a lot of decks that Flygon Decidueye has been able to go through, which is really nice. This combination is really good. I absolutely love it. These 2 cards were really meant for each other. So definitely check it out. Let me know in the comments section what you think of this deck and this combination. Is Flygon and Decidueye a combination that you're going to utilize in the future? Are you going to check it out? Is there a card in this deck that you would substitute out? And what would you substitute in to make this deck even better? I'm interested to hear your opinions. What are your combinations for Flygon? Flygon, like I said, is a little bit more difficult of a card to get online. So what have you been combining with it to make it work? Decidueye is a great partner for it, but there are other partners out there that do make it work as well, some of which I'm looking into. If there's a Pokemon that you want to see a deck built around, let me know in the comments section. I will get that done as well. I hope you enjoyed the rest of this video. Thanks for sticking around. Do make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon TCG Pocket content. I'll see you next time. Peace.